The crystal chandelier above me was worth more than my parents had earned in their entire lives, and I had bought it myself 18 months ago from an estate auction in Vienna. Nobody in that ballroom knew. Not the 200 guests sipping champagne from glasses I had selected, not my sister floating around in her $10,000 gown, and certainly not my mother, who had just loudly announced to a table of strangers that I was the family disappointment. My name is Renly Castellanos, and I was 34 years old the night my mother tried to humiliate me in front of 200 people. I sat at table 9, the table farthest from the head table, the table my sister had personally assigned me to because, in her words, she did not want my quiet energy bringing down her big moment. I wore a simple navy dress I had bought 3 years ago. I wore flat shoes because my feet had been on the property since 5 that morning, checking linens, tasting the salmon, making sure the valet team had enough hands for the arrival rush. None of the guests knew I had been there since dawn. None of them knew the woman in the navy dress was the reason their welcome bags had handwritten notes inside. The hotel was called the Marin, a 72-room luxury property tucked into the cliffs outside Santa Barbara, California. I had purchased it in March of 2022 through a holding company named after my grandmother, the only person in my family who had ever believed in me. The purchase price was $19 million. I had put down $4 million of my own money I had earned and saved across 12 brutal years of building a hospitality consulting firm from a one-bedroom apartment in Long Beach. The rest came from investors who had watched me turn 3 failing boutique hotels into profitable jewels and decided I was worth betting on. My parents did not know any of this. They thought I worked, in their words, some little office job in Los Angeles. They thought I rented a studio apartment. They thought I drove a used Honda. The Honda was real. I liked the Honda. I had bought it in 2014 when I had nothing, and I had kept it because it reminded me of who I was when I was hungry. But the studio apartment was a lie I had let them believe. The little office job was a lie I had let them believe. I had stopped correcting them around 2019, when I realized that every time I tried to share good news, my mother found a way to twist it into something embarrassing. So I had let them think what they wanted to think. And tonight, in a ballroom I owned, on a property I owned, surrounded by staff who quietly called me ma'am and pretended not to know me when my family was nearby, I was eating a piece of bread and watching my sister Saoirse dance with her new husband Bram. Bram was a tech executive. Bram came from old Connecticut money. Bram had a trust fund that had been quietly described to my parents as generational. My parents loved Bram in a way they had never loved me, and I do not say that to be dramatic. I say that because it was simply true, and accepting it had been one of the hardest things I had ever done. The first sharp comment came around the time the salads were cleared. My mother, Delphine Castellanos, had moved from her assigned seat at the head table to sit next to me. She did this with a glass of red wine in her hand and a strange, tight smile on her face that I recognized from childhood. It was the smile she wore right before she said something cruel, and then claimed she was only joking. She set her wine down on the white linen and patted my arm. "You should have tried harder with your hair, sweetheart," she said. "You look so tired. Doesn't she look tired, Harlan?" My father, Harlan Castellanos, had followed her over. He pulled out a chair and sat down heavily, his bow tie already loosened. "She always looks tired," he said. "That is what happens when you work some little job that goes nowhere. You spend your whole life chasing nothing and you end up looking like that." The 2 women across from me, both college friends of my sister, suddenly became very interested in their bread plates. I took a slow sip of water. I did not respond. I had learned a long time ago that responding only made things worse. My mother leaned closer, and the smell of the wine on her breath reached me before her words did. "You know," she said, just loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear, "your sister married a man who will take care of her for the rest of her life. Bram is going to give her everything. A house in Greenwich, a house in Aspen, children who will go to the best schools. And you, look at you, 34 years old and still pretending that little job of yours is going somewhere. When are you going to wake up, Renly? When are you going to accept that you are a failure?" The word landed in the air between us, like a glass dropped on tile. A failure. I felt something in my chest tighten, but I kept my face still. I had spent 12 years learning how to keep my face still in high-pressure rooms. I had negotiated with bankers who tried to bully me. I had sat across from contractors who thought a young woman would not notice padded invoices. I had fired a general manager in front of his entire team because he had touched a housekeeper inappropriately. My face did not move when I did not want it to move. But my mother was not finished. She raised her wine glass slightly, the way a person does when they are about to make a toast, and she turned her body so that more of the room could hear her. "You will never amount to anything," she said. "Why can you not be rich like your sister's husband? Why can you not bring something to this family besides excuses?" I heard a fork clink against a plate 2 tables away. I heard somebody whisper. I heard the music shift from one slow song to another. The DJ, a man named Cortez whom I had personally interviewed and hired 6 months ago, glanced over at our table with concern on his face. He knew, of course he knew, the entire staff knew. But the staff had been told, very clearly by me, that tonight my last name was just Castellanos, not the owner, not the boss, just the sister. I looked at my mother. I looked at my father. I looked at the wine in the glass of my mother, dark red and swirling, the same color as the lipstick she had worn to my college graduation, the same color she had worn the day she told me at 16 that I was the kind of girl who would end up alone. I did not say a word. I smiled, a small, tired, gentle smile, the kind of smile you give to a stranger who has bumped into you in a grocery store. And then I looked past my mother, toward the back of the ballroom, where the floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto the cliff garden, and I saw him. Idris Pemberton, the general manager of the property. A tall, calm man of 58 who had run luxury hotels in Dubai and London before I had hired him 18 months ago. He was walking across the room toward me, and he was holding something small and silver on a navy velvet tray. I had not asked for this. We had not planned this. But Idris had clearly been watching, and Idris was a man who had seen too much in his career to let a moment like this pass without saying something. He had also become, in our months of working together, fiercely protective of me in a quiet way I had not earned and could not quite explain. He stopped at our table. The conversation around us thinned. He bowed, just slightly, just the way he bowed to visiting royalty. "Madam Owner," he said, his voice clear and warm. "Forgive the interruption. The keys to the executive suite as you requested. Welcome home." He placed the small silver tray on the table in front of me. On the tray sat a brass key on a leather fob. Engraved into the fob were 3 words. "The Marin, owner." My mother turned her head slowly. Her wine glass was still in her hand. And then the glass slipped. The sound of crystal hitting marble is something a person never forgets, especially when the marble in question is a custom-imported slab from a quarry outside Carrara, Italy, that I had personally signed off on 20 months ago. The glass exploded into 1,000 glittering pieces at the feet of my mother, and red wine spread across the floor in a slow dark bloom that looked, for a moment, like a wound opening in the room. 3 of the wait staff moved immediately. They did not look at me. They did not need to. They had been trained to respond to broken glass within 15 seconds, and they did. One brought a clean towel. One brought a small broom. One quietly placed a discreet wet floor sign and ushered the nearest guests back half a step. The whole recovery took less than a minute, and in that minute, nobody at my table spoke a word. My mother stared at the key on the tray. My father stared at Idris. Idris stood with his hands folded gently in front of him, calm as a statue, the way he always was. "Will there be anything else, madam?" he asked me. I looked up at him, and for 1 second I let my face show what I felt. Gratitude, relief, a flash of something that felt almost like being held. Then I tucked it away again. "No, Idris, thank you. Please make sure the late-night dessert station is set up by 10. "Already in motion, madam." He bowed again, just slightly, and walked away. My sister Saoirse appeared at the edge of the table about 10 seconds later. She had been at the dance floor, and somebody must have whispered something to her, because her face had that pinched white look she used to get as a child when a teacher caught her copying my homework. She was holding the train of her dress in one hand and a flute of champagne in the other. "What is happening here?" she said. "What was that? Mom, why is there glass everywhere? Renly, what did you do?" I noticed that, the instinct without information to ask what I had done. I did not answer her. My mother finally found her voice. "What is the meaning of this?" she said. Her voice was higher now, thinner. "What was that man saying? Owner, he called you owner. Renly, what is going on?" I picked up the key off the tray. I held it in my palm. The brass was cool. The leather fob was soft and worn in the way only good leather gets, because I had been carrying a version of this key around for almost 2 years. "It means what it sounds like, Mom," I said quietly. "I own this hotel." She laughed. It was a sharp, surprised laugh, the kind of laugh a person uses when they have decided to refuse a fact. "That is not funny, Renly. That is not funny at all. Whatever joke this is not the night for it. Saoirse, sit down. Harlan, tell her." My father, Harlan, was a man who had spent 42 years selling commercial insurance and thought of himself as a sharp judge of people. He was looking at me the way a person looks at a magic trick they have not figured out yet. His mouth was slightly open. "Renly," he said, "explain yourself." I set the key down on the table, next to my water glass. "There is nothing to explain right now. Saoirse, this is your wedding. Go enjoy it. We can talk about all of this tomorrow." "No," my mother said. "No, no, no, you do not get to drop something like that and then tell us to wait. You own this hotel? This hotel? Renly, this place costs, this place is. Do you know what it costs to hold a wedding here?" "I do actually," I said. "I set the rates." That stopped her. Her mouth opened and closed twice. Saoirse, meanwhile, had set her champagne flute down on the table with a hand that was not quite steady. Her wedding to Bram had taken place at the Marin because, 6 months ago, our mother had begged her to choose the most prestigious venue she could find, and Saoirse had chosen this one because somebody at the country club of Bram had recommended it. The booking had gone through a wedding planner. The contract had been signed without anybody in my family ever seeing the actual ownership documents. The ownership documents named a holding company, and behind the holding company, behind 2 more layers, was me. The fee for the wedding had been $184,000. Bram had paid it without blinking. My family had bragged for months about how much it cost. I had quietly approved a 15% discount on the venue rental when the planner of Saoirse had emailed asking. I had done that because she was my sister. I had not told her. I had not told anybody. Saoirse looked at me now with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was not anger. It was not embarrassment. It was something colder, and it took me a moment to place it. It was calculation. "How long?" she said. "How long what, Saoirse? How long have you owned this place?" "Since March of 2022. She did her math out loud. "That is over 3 years. 3 years. And you let Mom and Dad think, you let me plan my entire wedding at a hotel that oh my God, Renly. Why would you hide that?" "Because every time I tried to share good news," I said, "Mom found a way to make it small. So I stopped sharing." My mother flinched. It was the first honest reaction I had seen on her face all night. But she recovered quickly, the way she always did. "That is not fair," she said. "That is not fair at all. We always supported you. We always celebrated you. You have rewritten history in your own head, Renly, and that is part of why you have always been so difficult." I looked at her. 20 minutes ago, this woman had called me a failure in front of 200 guests. 20 minutes ago, this woman had asked why I could not be rich like Bram. I did not point any of that out. I did not need to. The whole table had heard it. The 2 college friends of Saoirse across from me had heard it. The neighboring tables had heard it. I had a feeling that by morning, half the people in this ballroom would have repeated the moment to somebody. Bram appeared at the edge of the table. He had loosened his tie too, and he had the slightly flushed look of a man who has had 3 glasses of champagne and is finally enjoying himself. "What did I miss?" he said cheerfully. "Saoirse, baby, they are about to do the cake." Saoirse turned to him, her voice came out tight. "Renly owns this hotel." Bram blinked. "I am sorry." "My sister, Renly, she owns this hotel, the Marin, she owns it. She has owned it for 3 years." There was a pause. And then Bram, to his credit, did the thing none of my family had done. He smiled, a real smile. He turned to me and he stuck out his hand. "Renly, that is amazing, genuinely. Congratulations. This place is incredible, I had no idea. I shook his hand. Thank you, Bram, welcome to the family. For one strange second, I felt closer to him than I had ever felt to my own parents. My mother saw it, her face hardened. Bram, she said sharply, do not encourage her. She has been lying to this family for years. Years, that is not something to congratulate. Bram turned to her slowly. He was a quiet man, generally, but I had read about him before the wedding. I knew he had walked away from a hedge fund job at 26 because his boss had made a racist comment about a colleague. I knew he had a spine, even if my family had only ever seen the smile. Delphine, he said with great politeness, I am not sure she was lying. I think she was protecting herself. My mother stared at him, as though he had just spit on the cake. I stood up from the table. I picked up the key. I slipped it into the small pocket of my navy dress. I am going to step outside for some air, I said. Saoirse, enjoy your night. We can talk in the morning. I walked out of the ballroom with my head high and my hands steady, and behind me, I heard my mother say, to nobody in particular, she is doing this on purpose. She is ruining the wedding on purpose. I kept walking. The cliff garden of the Marin is my favorite place on the property. It runs along the western edge of the hotel for about 300 feet, and at sunset, when the light hits the Pacific just right, the whole stretch turns gold. I had walked it 100 times in the planning phase, back when the gardens were dead and the irrigation was broken and the previous owners had let the roses go to ruin. Now there were lemon trees and lavender and a low stone wall where guests could sit and watch the water. I sat on that wall now, and I let myself breathe for the first time in 6 hours. Idris found me about 10 minutes later. He did not say anything at first. He just sat down on the wall a respectful distance away and looked out at the ocean. I should not have done that, perhaps, he finally said. You should have, I said. I am glad you did. I have a daughter, he said. She is 27. She lives in London. If anybody ever spoke to her the way that woman spoke to you tonight, I do not know what I would do. So when I saw it, I am sorry, madam, I could not stay at the desk. I smiled at the ocean. Idris, please, just for tonight, call me Renly. Renly, he said. He tested it like a new word. All right. We sat in silence for a while. The music from the ballroom drifted out faintly through the open windows. They were playing a song I had picked off the approved list myself, an old one, something my grandmother used to hum in the kitchen. Did I just blow up my family? I asked quietly. Idris took his time answering. He was a man who took his time. I think, he said, that your family was already a structure with cracks. Tonight, somebody finally pointed at the cracks. That is not the same as blowing it up. I closed my eyes. I thought about the cracks. I thought about being 7 years old and bringing home a drawing I had worked on for 3 weeks at school. It was a picture of our family. I had drawn my mother in a yellow dress and my father in his work suit, and my sister Saoirse in a pink ballet outfit and myself in the corner with our cat, Mr. Pickles. My teacher had given me a gold star. I had run home so excited that I had tripped on the porch and skinned my knee. I had not even cared. I had run inside bleeding to show my mother, and my mother had taken the drawing and looked at it and said, "Why is your sister bigger than you in the picture?" "Oh, that is right, because she is the pretty one." And she had laughed. And she had taped the drawing on the refrigerator anyway, but every time I had looked at it after that, I had only seen the size of my sister. I thought about being 12 and winning a citywide essay contest. The prize had been $100 and a plaque with my name on it. My mother had told me at dinner that the contest was probably not very competitive, because if it had been competitive, somebody better would have won. I thought about being 17 and getting into the only college I had applied to, a small business school in Oregon that had given me a partial scholarship. My father had told me the school was not impressive, and that he was not going to pay the rest of the tuition because if I really wanted it, I would figure it out. So I had figured it out. I had worked 3 jobs in college. I had graduated in 3.5 years to save money. I had walked across the stage at 21 with no family in the audience, because they had all flown out for a cheerleading competition of Saoirse the same weekend. I thought about my grandmother, Lucinda, the one person who had ever shown up. She had come to my graduation. She had driven herself 11 hours from Boise, Idaho, in a 1998 Buick, alone at the age of 73. She had taken me to dinner at an Olive Garden after the ceremony, and she had pressed a folded check into my hand and said, "You start your real life now, baby. Do not look back at them. They will only slow you down." The check had been for $9,000. It was every penny she had in savings. I had cried in the parking lot of that Olive Garden for 40 minutes. I had used that $9,000 to move to Los Angeles, get a one-bedroom apartment, and start applying for any job in hospitality that would have me. I had taken a front desk position at a 2-star hotel near the airport. I had worked my way up. By the time my grandmother died in 2019, I had been the general manager of a boutique hotel in West Hollywood, and I had been able to pay for her hospice care in full. My parents had not known that either. My grandmother had asked me not to tell them. She had said, with the brutal clarity of a dying woman, that my parents would only resent me for it. She had been right. The money I had used to buy the Marin had grown from that $9,000. Every dollar I had now had a thread that led back to my grandmother in a 1998 Buick. "Idris," I said. "Yes. Thank you for what you did tonight." "You are welcome, Renly." He stood up. "There is one more thing you should know," he said. "Your mother has been at the bar for the last 7 minutes. She is on her second drink. She has been speaking to anybody who will listen. I thought you should know in case you wish to handle it before it grows." I sighed. "Let her talk," I said. "She is going to do that no matter what I do." "As you wish, madam," he paused. "Renly, there is also the matter of the reception tomorrow morning. The brunch, will you be attending?" "The brunch? Right. The post-wedding family brunch in the private dining room. 24 people. I had personally approved the menu. Eggs Benedict with the smoked salmon I had imported from a farm in Scotland. Fresh pastries from a bakery in Montecito that I had partnered with from day one. "I will be there," I said. "Of course I will be there. I am not running from my own building." Idris nodded once. He walked back toward the hotel. I sat on the wall a little longer. I watched the moon climb over the water. I thought about what I was going to say tomorrow. By the time I walked back into the ballroom, the cake had been cut. The crowd had thinned. My sister was dancing again, but the joy had drained out of her face, and her eyes kept darting toward the bar where my mother was standing with a fresh drink and a circle of cousins around her. I did not approach my mother. I did not approach Saoirse. I walked the perimeter of the room once, the way I had walked it 1,000 times during construction, checking corners, noting which sconces needed bulbs, watching the staff move. I made eye contact with 3 of my waiters and gave each of them the small nod that meant you are doing well, keep going. And then I walked out of the ballroom, took the private elevator up to the executive suite on the 7th floor, the suite I had set aside for myself in case of late nights on property, and I locked the door behind me. I stood at the window and looked out at the dark water. I had not won anything tonight. I knew that. A confrontation with a parent who refused to see you was not a victory. It was just a moment when the lie became too heavy to carry anymore. But the lie was on the floor now, and I was not going to pick it up again. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay on the king bed in the executive suite, still wearing the navy dress, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. My phone was on the nightstand, face down. I did not need to look at it to know what was on it. By the time I had reached the 7th floor, the screen had been lighting up every few seconds. By the time I had taken off my shoes, there had been 47 missed calls. I had silenced it. Around 2 in the morning, I finally rolled over and looked. 47 had grown to 73. Most were from my mother. A handful were from my father. 6 were from Saoirse. 2 were from a cousin I had not spoken to in 9 years, who was suddenly very interested in my well-being. The text messages were worse. I scrolled through a few of them, and they followed a pattern I recognized so well that I almost laughed. The first wave was anger. "How dare you embarrass us? How dare you do this on the night of your sister? How dare you lie to your family for 3 years? The second wave was guilt. "Your father has not slept. Your father is so disappointed. I have been crying since you left the ballroom. Do you know what you have done?" The third wave was bargaining. "We can fix this. We can sit down and talk about this like adults. Call me back, sweetheart. I love you. You know I love you. I just want to understand." There was no fourth wave yet. The fourth wave, when it came, would be threats. I had seen this cycle 1,000 times growing up. It usually took my mother about 48 hours to reach the fourth wave. I did not respond to any of them. I plugged in the phone and turned it face down again. At 7 in the morning, I got up, showered, and put on a fresh outfit I kept in the suite. Cream silk blouse, black trousers, low heels. I pinned my hair back. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I did not look tired anymore. I looked ready. I went downstairs at 8. The brunch was scheduled for 9 in the private dining room on the second floor. I went to the kitchen first. I checked in with the executive chef, a wonderful woman named Beatrice Oliver, whom I had stolen from a resort in Sonoma 18 months ago. She was already plating the fruit boards. "Madam," she said. She looked at me carefully. "Idris told me about last night. Are you all right?" "I am all right, Beatrice. Thank you. Please make sure everything is perfect today. My family is going to be very interested in critiquing every detail." She smiled grimly. "It will be perfect. They will have nothing to criticize." "They will find something, they always do, but thank you." I walked through the lobby. The morning staff nodded at me. The night manager, a younger man named Devin, intercepted me near the front desk. "Madam Castellanos, a word." "Yes, Devin." "Your mother?" "She came down to the lobby at 6:45 this morning. She demanded to speak with the owner. She told the front desk clerk that she was the mother of the owner and she had the authority to ask anything she wanted. She asked to see the ownership records." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she had. "What did Aubrey tell her?" "Aubrey, very politely, told her that ownership records are confidential and that any questions of that nature must go through legal channels. Your mother then asked to be moved to a better room at no additional charge." "Did Aubrey accommodate?" "Aubrey came to me. I told Aubrey to politely decline. Your mother is in a deluxe king suite that costs $920 a night. There is no reason to upgrade her." "Good, thank you, Devin. Anything else?" She also asked for a wake-up call from the owner of the hotel personally. I almost laughed. "Decline that one too." "Already done, madam." I walked into the private dining room at 5 minutes before 9. I was the first one there. I chose a seat at the head of the long oval table, the seat I would normally have given to a paying client. I sat down, I poured myself a glass of water, I waited. My father arrived first. He came in alone. He looked older than he had looked yesterday, and that surprised me because I had not realized that one night could age a man 8 years. He sat down across from me. He did not say good morning. He did not say my name. He just sat down and folded his hands in front of him. "Hello, Dad," I said. "Renly." We looked at each other across the table. "I want to ask you a question," he finally said, "and I want a straight answer." "All right. How much money do you have?" It was the most him question he could have asked. Not "are you okay?" Not "how are you feeling?" Not "why did we never know?" Just "how much?" "I am not going to answer that," I said. "Why not?" "Because the answer is not what is important here, Dad. The fact that you led with the question is what is important." His jaw tightened. "I am your father, Renly. I have a right to know." "You do not have a right to know my finances. You have not had a right to know my finances since I was 18 and started paying for myself. You did not pay for my college. You did not help me with my first apartment. You did not co-sign my first business loan. You have no financial relationship with me, Dad. You have not had one for 16 years. The right you are claiming does not exist." He stared at me. He had not expected that, I think. He had expected the daughter who used to apologize for taking up too much space at the dinner table. He had expected the girl who used to write him long letters at Christmas explaining why she had not been able to afford a better gift. "You are angry," he said. "That is what this is. You are angry and you are punishing us." "I am not angry, Dad. I am tired. There is a difference." My mother walked in then. She was wearing a cream pantsuit with a gold scarf, and her hair was perfect. She had clearly spent the morning preparing for this. She had a soft, wounded look on her face, and she sat down next to my father and put her hand on his arm. "Renly," she said. "Sweetheart, I did not sleep at all last night. Not at all. I have been thinking and thinking, and I just want to understand. I just want you to help me understand why you did this to us." "Did what, Mom?" Hid this, hid yourself, hid your success. Why did you not tell us? I took a breath. Because of last night, Mom. What does that mean? It means that last night, before you knew about the hotel, you called me a failure in front of 200 people. You said I would never amount to anything. You asked me, in public, why I could not be rich like Bram. That is why I did not tell you, Mom, because that is who you are when you do not know. And I did not want to find out who you would become when you did know. Her face shifted. The wounded look slipped, and underneath it I saw something I had seen many times. It was not regret. It was the calculation of a person figuring out which strategy was going to work. I was joking, Renly. You know I joke like that. You have always been too sensitive. 200 people heard you, Mom. Strangers came up to me at the bar last night and apologized for what you said. The wait staff who served your table heard you. My general manager heard you. You were not joking. You were performing for an audience because you wanted to put me in my place at the wedding of your favorite daughter, and you thought you could get away with it because you thought I was the small one in the family. I am not the small one anymore, Mom. I have not been for a long time. Saoirse and Bram walked in. They froze in the doorway when they saw our faces. Should we come back? Bram said carefully. No, I said. Sit down. This is a family conversation. You are family now, Bram. Saoirse sat down with the careful posture of a woman who had not yet decided what side she was on. Bram sat next to her. He had the slightly uncomfortable expression of a man who had married into something more complicated than he had bargained for. The other relatives, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the grandparents of Bram, were apparently arriving at 9:15. My mother explained, because she had texted them all to come a little later so that we could have a chance to talk as a family first. The way she said, as a family, made my stomach turn. Mom, Saoirse said carefully, before everybody else gets here, Renly, I want to ask you something. Go ahead, Saoirse. She fiddled with the napkin in front of her. She looked at me, and for the first time in years she actually looked at me, not past me, not through me, at me. When I called you in February, she said, and I told you that we had picked the Marin, and that the deposit was $60,000 and that we were stretching our budget. Do you remember? I remember. And you said, oh, that is a beautiful property, I have heard good things. And you did not mention that you owned it. You let me put down a deposit on my own sister's hotel without telling me. Yes, I said. Why? I thought about how to say it. Because Mom was on the call too, Saoirse. Mom was on speakerphone, and Mom had just spent 10 minutes telling me that I should not even come to the wedding because I would not be able to afford a proper dress and I would embarrass everybody. Do you remember that part of the call? Saoirse looked at the table. Yes, she said quietly. So when you said you had picked the Marin, what I heard was that my mother was going to spend the next 6 months celebrating the venue, bragging about the venue, telling everybody we knew that her daughter was getting married at a place I could never afford. And I made a decision in that moment to let her have that, to let her have the bragging, to let her have her version of the story. Because if I had told you that I owned it, what do you think Mom would have done? Saoirse was quiet for a long time. She would have, Saoirse said slowly, she would have demanded a discount. Yes. And she would have called you ungrateful when you said no. Yes. And she would have made the whole wedding about whether or not you had given her enough. Yes. And she would have probably got me involved in pressuring you. Yes, Saoirse. Saoirse looked up at me, her eyes were wet. I gave you a 15% discount, by the way, I said. Through the planner, you did not know it was from me, but it was, because you are my sister, and I love you, and I wanted to do that. Quietly. Saoirse put her hand over her mouth. My mother made a sound that was somewhere between a scoff and a gasp. Oh, please, she said. Oh, please, Renly, do not turn this into a moment. Do not sit there and act like the saint of the family when you have been lying to all of us for years. I turned to her. Mom, I am going to say something to you, and I want you to hear it, just once. Just this morning, I do not need you to agree, I do not need you to apologize, I just need you to listen. She crossed her arms. I never lied to you, I never told you I was poor, I never told you I had a small job, I told you I worked in hospitality. I told you I lived in Los Angeles. I told you I worked hard. Those things were all true. The story you told yourselves about me, the story where I was struggling and pathetic and a failure, that story was not something I made up. That story was something you wrote because you needed me to be small so that Saoirse could be big. You needed a failure daughter, Mom, so I let you have one. That is on me. I should have corrected you. I should have stood up for myself years ago. But the lie, Mom, was not mine. The lie was the story you preferred to tell. The room was completely silent. My father cleared his throat. Renly, that is not fair to your mother. Dad, I said, I was at a state spelling bee when I was 11. I won second place. Do you know what Mom said to me on the car ride home? He did not answer. She said, second place is just the first loser. Do you remember that? He did not answer. I do, Saoirse said quietly. I was in the back seat, I remember. My mother turned on her. Saoirse, be quiet. No, Mom, I remember. I remember a lot of things. I have been thinking all night. I have been remembering a lot of things. Bram reached over and took the hand of Saoirse. My mother stood up. She put both hands on the table. This is ridiculous, she said. This is absolutely ridiculous. I am not going to sit here and be ambushed at my own daughter's brunch by the two of you suddenly deciding that I am the villain. I have been a good mother. I have been a great mother. I gave up my career to raise you girls. I drove you to every practice. I packed your lunches. I won, I gave you everything, and this is the thanks I get. My older daughter humiliates me at a wedding by faking some elaborate scheme to make me look bad, and my younger daughter, on the morning after her own wedding, sides against me. After everything I did for you, Saoirse, after everything. Saoirse, to her great credit, did not break. Mom, Renly did not fake anything. The hotel is real. The success is real. You are upset because she did not tell you. But the reason she did not tell you is the part you need to look at. My mother sat back down. She did not say anything for a long moment. Then she said, quietly, in a voice I had not heard from her before, I am the mother of the owner of a luxury hotel. I almost laughed. It was such a perfect sentence, so perfectly her. No, Mom, I said gently. You are the mother of Renly. The hotel is a thing I own. It is not a thing you own. It is not a thing you get to wear like jewelry. The relationship between you and me is not changed by what is in my bank account. It is changed by what you said last night, in front of 200 people, when you thought I was nobody. She looked at me, and for 1 second, just one, I saw the woman she might have been if she had not built her whole personality around comparison and contempt. I saw a tired person, a small person, a person who had not gotten the life she had wanted, and who had spent 40 years taking that disappointment out on the daughter who reminded her most of herself. Then the second passed, and the wall went back up. I am not going to apologize, she said. I am not. Whatever I said last night you provoked. You wore that awful dress. You sat at table 9 like a martyr. You knew this was going to happen, and you set this whole thing up to humiliate us. I looked at her. I looked at my father. I looked at Saoirse, who was crying silently with one hand over her mouth. I stood up. I am going to step out for a few minutes, I said. I need some air. The brunch will start at 9:15 as planned. Beatriz has prepared something beautiful. I will be back. I walked out of the private dining room. The hallway was cool and quiet. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes for 10 seconds. When I opened them, Bram was standing in the doorway. Renly, he said, can I walk with you? We walked down the second-floor corridor toward the small terrace at the eastern end of the building. Bram did not say anything for the first 30 seconds. He was a man who let silence sit, which I appreciated, because most people rushed to fill it. I want to tell you something, he finally said, and I am going to ask you to keep it between us. All right. Saoirse and I almost called off the wedding 8 weeks ago. I stopped walking. I turned to look at him. Why? Because of your mother. I waited. She kept inserting herself, Bram said, about the dress, about the guest list, about the menu, about the seating, things that were not her decision. She told Saoirse that if I really loved her, I would buy her a bigger ring. She told Saoirse that my grandmother of Connecticut probably thought she was after the money. She tried to get my parents to pay for things that we had already agreed they would not pay for. Saoirse was crying every night. Every night, Renly, for 3 months. And I told her, finally, 2 months ago, that I was not going to marry into a family that was going to make her cry every night, and that we needed to either set boundaries with your mother or postpone. What did Saoirse do? She had a long conversation with your mother. She set some boundaries. Your mother cried and threatened to skip the wedding. Then your mother accepted the boundaries, sort of, and the crying stopped. But last night, when I watched her go after you, I realized that the version of your mother that Saoirse and I have been managing for 6 months is the polite version. The version she uses when she knows she might lose something. The version we saw last night was the real one. I did not know what to say. I wanted you to know, Bram said, that Saoirse is not on your mother's side, even if Saoirse has been quiet for years, even if Saoirse went along with things. She is not on your mother's side. She just did not know how to be on yours without losing the only family she had. Does that make sense? It makes sense, Bram. Also, he paused. I want to say something else. As somebody who married into your family, I do not need a sister-in-law, I have my own sisters. But if you would let me be a friend, Renly, I would like to be that. Saoirse needs more people on her side, and from what I saw last night, you do too. I looked at this man my parents had spent 6 months worshipping, this man whose money my mother had decided was the only valuable thing in our family, and I realized he was, simply, a kind person. I would like that, Bram, thank you. We walked back toward the dining room. The aunts and uncles and cousins had begun to arrive. I could hear the chatter from the hallway. The grandparents of Bram were already seated. The grandmother of Bram, an older woman with white hair and sharp blue eyes named Cordelia, looked up when I walked in. You must be Renly, she said. Come sit by me, dear. I sat by her. She patted my hand. I heard about last night, she said quietly. Not from your mother, from 3 different guests at the bar. I want you to know that I told all of them to mind their own business and stop gossiping. But I also want you to know that I am proud of you. I do not know you, but I am proud of you. It takes a great deal of strength to build something and not need anybody to know. I almost cried at the kindness of a complete stranger. Thank you, Cordelia. My grandson married well, she said. I see that now. He married a sister who loves him enough to step away from her own mother to protect him. That is the kind of woman who makes a good wife. You tell your sister that, when the moment is right, from me. I will. The brunch began. Beatrice had outdone herself. The eggs Benedict was perfect. The fruit was perfect. The pastries were perfect. My mother sat at the far end of the table and barely touched her food. My father ate quietly. Saoirse sat next to Bram and held his hand under the table. The cousins gossiped. The aunts asked me 100 polite questions about the hotel, and I answered them all carefully, neither bragging nor downplaying. About halfway through the meal, my Aunt Marjorie, the older sister of my mother and the only one of my aunts who had ever sent me a birthday card, leaned across the table to me. Renly, did you really buy this hotel by yourself? With investors, Aunt Marjorie, but I am the majority owner. Yes. How did you, where did you get the money? If you do not mind me asking. I thought about it. I decided to tell the truth, because the truth was not shameful and I was done hiding it. I started a hospitality consulting firm in 2013, after I had been a general manager for a few years. I worked with 3 boutique hotels in California that were failing. I turned them around. I took a small ownership stake in each one as part of my fee. By 2020, I had sold 2 of those stakes for a profit. I used that money, plus money I had saved, plus investors who liked my track record, to buy this place. And Grandma Lucinda, Aunt Marjorie said, she gave you that money when you graduated. I always wondered what you did with it. That is where it started, I said. Every dollar I have today started with the $9,000 she gave me in the parking lot of an Olive Garden. Aunt Marjorie was quiet for a moment. She told me once, Marjorie said, that you were going to be the one. She said, watch Renly, watch her quietly. She is going to be the one who builds something. I thought she was just being a proud grandmother. I should have listened more carefully. My mother stood up suddenly from the far end of the table. I am not feeling well, she announced. I am going back to my room. Nobody stopped her. My father stood up to follow her, paused, looked at me, paused again, and then sat back down. He did not follow her. That was something. That was the first time in my life I had seen my father not follow my mother out of a room. She left. The brunch continued without her. After the meal, Saoirse and Bram came over to me. Saoirse hugged me. It was a long hug. It was the first real hug she had given me since we were children. I am sorry, she whispered. I am so sorry for so much, I do not even know where to start. You can start tomorrow, I said. Today, just go enjoy your husband. You leave for your honeymoon in 3 hours. Go pack, go be happy. Can we talk when I get back? Yes, absolutely yes. And Renly? Yes. The 15% discount. Thank you, I did not know. And I am embarrassed to think about how Mom would have used that information. It is okay, you know now. They left, the rest of the family filtered out. I shook hands with the parents of Bram. I made a date for tea with Cordelia, who insisted she wanted to know me better. By noon, the dining room was empty. I went back upstairs to the executive suite. I sat on the bed. I picked up my phone. There were 17 new messages from my mother. The first one read, I have decided that I am going to write a letter to the local newspaper about how my daughter humiliated her family. The second one read, I have also decided that I am going to contact the investors of the hotel and let them know what kind of person they are doing business with. The third one read, I have already called my lawyer. I read all 17 messages. Then I put the phone down. I did not feel afraid. I felt, for the first time in my adult life, a strange and quiet certainty. She was going to escalate, I had known she would, and I was going to be ready. I picked up the phone again. I called my own lawyer. My lawyer was a woman named Honorata Vec. She was 61 years old, she had 3 grown children, and she had been my attorney since 2017, when I had hired her to help me structure my consulting firm. She answered on the second ring, even though it was a Sunday afternoon. Renly, I have been waiting for your call. I saw the photos on social media this morning. What photos? Your mother posted a long statement on her Facebook page, with photos, about how her ungrateful daughter staged a humiliation at her sister's wedding, about how you tricked the family, about how the hotel ownership is allegedly fraudulent. She tagged the hotel in the post. She tagged your sister. She tagged me, actually, although I do not know how she found my name. I closed my eyes. How bad is it? It has been shared 412 times since 7 this morning. It is not viral, but it is moving. The comments are mixed. Some people are supporting her. Some people are asking why she would say all of this publicly. A few people are tagging journalists. Honorata. Yes. I want to do this carefully. I do not want a scorched earth response. I just want her to stop. Then let me handle it the way I would handle any defamation case, Renly. You let me write her a letter, a cease and desist. We do not threaten her. We just lay out the facts. The ownership is documented, public, and legal. The accusations of fraud are false. Continued public defamation will result in legal action. We send it to her certified mail. We post nothing publicly. We let her see, in black and white, that she has crossed a line that has consequences. Yes, do that. I will have it ready by Tuesday. Thank you, Honorata. One more thing, Renly. Yes. Your mother also contacted a journalist, a man named Whit Lazarian. He writes a hospitality industry column. He emailed our firm an hour ago asking for a comment on, and I quote, allegations of impropriety in the ownership structure of the Marin. I have not responded yet. How would you like to handle that? I sat down on the bed. I thought for a long minute. Honorata, could you set up a phone call with him, for me, tomorrow morning? You want to speak to a journalist about this directly? Yes, I do. Renly, as your lawyer, I advise you to let me handle the press. I hear you, but I have been hiding for 12 years, Honorata. I am tired of hiding. If he is going to write a story about me, I would rather he write it with my voice in it than my voice excluded. There was a pause. All right, she said, I will set it up, 9 in the morning. 9 works. And Renly. Yes. For what it is worth, I think you are doing the right thing." We hung up. I sat on the bed for a long time. I looked out the window at the cliffs. I thought about the Facebook post. I thought about the 412 shares. I thought about my mother typing it, sitting in her hotel room 2 floors below me on a property I owned, calling me a fraud. I picked up the phone again. I called my father. He answered on the 4th ring. "Renly." "Dad, I just got off the phone with my lawyer. Mom wrote a post on Facebook this morning accusing me of fraud." A long silence. "I know," he finally said. "You know." "I saw it before she posted it. I told her not to." "And she did anyway." "Yes." "Dad, I'm going to send her a cease and desist letter, through my lawyer, by Tuesday." I expected him to argue, to beg, to tell me to be the bigger person. Instead, he said, very quietly, "I think that is the right move." I almost dropped the phone. "What did you say?" I said, "I think that is the right move." "Dad." "Renly, I have been sitting in this hotel room for the last 3 hours. Your mother is on the balcony. She has been on the phone calling people. She has been telling everybody who will listen a story that I know is not true. I have been married to this woman for 39 years, Renly. I know when she is lying to other people, and I know when she is lying to herself. She is doing both right now." I did not know what to say. "I want to tell you something," he continued. "And I do not say this as an excuse. I say it because I owe you the truth. Your mother had a sister, her older sister, Roselle. She died when your mother was 19. Roselle was the successful one. Roselle was the beautiful one. Roselle was going to be a doctor. And then she got sick, and she died, and your mother, who was the average one, the disappointing one, the one nobody had expected anything from, suddenly became the only daughter. And I think she has spent her whole life terrified that one of her own daughters would turn out to be Roselle, turn out to be the one who eclipsed her. And then you did, Renly. You did exactly what she was afraid of, and she has been punishing you for it since you were a little girl." I sat down on the floor next to the bed. I had never heard about Roselle. I had not even known the name. My grandmother had mentioned a sister once, vaguely, and I had assumed she meant somebody distant. I had been told, my whole childhood, that my mother was an only child. "Dad, why have I never heard this?" "Because your mother told us never to talk about Roselle, to you or to Saoirse. She said it brought up too much pain, and I went along with it. Because that is what I do, Renly. I go along with what your mother says. I have been doing that for 39 years. And I am beginning to understand this morning, watching her destroy the relationship between you and her on a public Facebook post, that I have been a coward for a very long time." I had no words. "I am not going to ask you to forgive me," he said. "I am not going to ask you to forgive her. I am just going to tell you that I am here, if you want to talk to me, about anything. I have been a bad father to you, Renly. I have a lot to make up for, and I am not sure I can, but I would like to try." I started crying, quietly, without sound. "Dad, thank you for telling me. I love you, Renly. I do not say that enough. I have not said it enough since you were a little girl. I love you." "I love you too, Dad." We hung up. I sat on the floor for a long time. Then I stood up. I washed my face. I went down to the lobby. I asked the front desk to send a fruit basket and a handwritten card to the room of my father on the house. The card said, "Dad, I am glad we talked. Renly." I did not send anything to the room of my mother. I drove home that evening. The 2-hour drive from Santa Barbara back to Los Angeles felt longer than usual. I listened to the radio and let my mind go quiet. When I got home, to the condo in the hills above Silver Lake that nobody in my family had ever seen, I sat on the balcony and looked at the city lights, and I thought about Roselle. A young woman I had never met. A woman who had died at 21, before I was born, before I was even thought of, and yet whose ghost had shaped every interaction I had ever had with my mother. I did not feel sorry for my mother. Not really. People with painful pasts do not get to use those pasts as a license to break their own children. But I did feel something I had not felt before. Something like understanding. Not forgiveness, just understanding. Just the seeing of the shape of the thing, finally, after 34 years of being inside of it. I went to bed early. I had a phone call with a journalist at 9 in the morning. I slept better than I had in months. The call with Whit Lazarian lasted 47 minutes. He was professional and curious, and not the gotcha journalist I had braced myself for. He asked me about my background, about the consulting firm, about how I had financed the purchase of the Marin, about my plans for the property. He asked about the allegations in the Facebook post of my mother. I answered every question honestly. I gave him the contact information for my accountant and for Honorata. I told him that he was welcome to verify anything he wished, and that I would prefer a thorough story to a fast one. He paused at one point and said, "Can I ask you something off the record?" "You can ask, I will decide whether to answer." "Why are you doing this? Why not let your lawyer handle it? You could have stayed completely behind the scenes." I thought about how to answer him. "Because I have spent 12 years building something I am proud of," I said, "and the only people in the world who do not know about it are the people who raised me. And the reason they do not know is because I did not feel safe telling them. I am 34 years old, Mr. Lazarian. I do not want to spend the next 34 years hiding too. If a story is going to be told about me, I want it to be the real one." He was quiet for a moment. "That is the most honest answer I have ever gotten from a hotel owner. Most hotel owners," I said, "have not had their mother accuse them of fraud on Facebook." He laughed. I had not meant it as a joke, but the absurdity of the situation caught up with me, and I laughed too. He wrote the story that week. It ran on Thursday morning. It was titled, "The Quiet Owner: How a Boise Daughter Built a Santa Barbara Jewel." It was 1,400 words. It told the story of my career. It mentioned the consulting firm. It mentioned my grandmother. It mentioned the $9,000 in the parking lot of an Olive Garden, which I had told him about because I had wanted my grandmother to be in the story. It briefly mentioned, in one paragraph near the end, that there had been a family dispute around the wedding of my sister, and that allegations of impropriety had been investigated and found to be false. He did not name my mother. He did not need to. The story did well. It was picked up by 2 hospitality industry trades. It was shared by several women business owners I had admired for years. By the end of the day, I had 11 messages on LinkedIn from people I had not heard from in years, all congratulating me. I responded to each one personally. My mother, of course, was furious. The cease and desist letter from Honorata arrived at her house on Friday. By Friday afternoon, my mother had taken down the Facebook post. By Friday evening, she had blocked me on every social media platform she used. By Saturday morning, she had blocked Saoirse too, which was an interesting development. Saoirse called me from her honeymoon. She and Bram were in Italy. "Renly, she blocked me, she blocked me." I heard. "Bram, she blocked Bram too. Renly, what do we do?" "Saoirse, we let her do it. She is throwing a tantrum. She wants us to chase her. We do not chase, we just live our lives. She will come back when she has decided she wants to, and when she comes back, we will set new terms." What does that mean? It means that the relationship cannot go back to what it was. I am not going to be the failure daughter anymore. You are not going to be the favorite daughter anymore. Those roles broke last weekend. They cannot be put back together. And if she wants a relationship with either of us going forward, it has to be a different kind of relationship. What if she does not want a different kind? Then we love her from a distance, Saoirse, and we have our own lives. She was quiet for a long time. "I keep thinking about everything you said at the brunch, about how Mom needed a failure daughter so I could be big. Renly, I am so sorry. I think I knew, on some level. I knew that I was being held up at your expense. And I never said anything because it was good for me, because I liked being the favorite. And that is such an ugly thing to admit, but I want you to know I see it now. Saoirse, thank you, that means a lot, really. Renly, can we have a real relationship now, you and me, the kind we never had? I would like that, very much. Bram says hi. He says he has been telling me to call you for 2 days. He is a good man, you picked well. I know, I really did. We talked for another 20 minutes. She told me about Florence. She told me about a small leather shop where she had bought me a wallet because, in her words, every successful woman needs a beautiful wallet. I told her I would treasure it. We laughed. We made plans to have dinner when she got back. I hung up and I sat on the balcony of my condo, and I felt something I had not felt before. I felt like I had a sister. The next 2 weeks passed quietly. I worked. I traveled to a property I consulted for in San Diego. I had dinner with Honorata. I had tea with Cordelia, the grandmother of Bram, who had insisted on taking the train into the city to meet me. We sat in a tea room in Pasadena and talked for 3 hours, and at the end she told me she was going to introduce me to her granddaughter, who ran a foundation focused on supporting first-generation women entrepreneurs. My father called me twice in those 2 weeks. We talked carefully, the way two strangers might. He asked me questions. I answered them. He told me, on the second call, that he was thinking about retiring, that he had been thinking about it for a while, that he wanted to do something different with the rest of his life. I told him I thought that was a good idea. My mother did not call. She did, however, do something else. On a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the wedding, I received a registered letter at my office. It was from my mother. It was 11 pages, handwritten on yellow legal pad paper. I read it once, all the way through, and then I put it in a drawer. It was not an apology. It was a list of every grievance she had ever had against me, every wrong I had ever done her, every disappointment, every embarrassment, every moment, going back to when I was a toddler, when I had made her feel less than she wanted to feel. There were items on the list I did not remember. There were items on the list that had never happened. There was a long passage in the middle that explained, in her words, that I had inherited my coldness from my grandmother, and that my grandmother had also been a difficult woman who had refused to be a proper mother. I read the letter once. I did not read it a second time. I did not respond to it. I did not show it to anybody except Honorata, who recommended I keep it as documentation. I put it in a folder labeled Mom Letter in a filing cabinet in my home office, and I closed the drawer. I cried that night, not for myself, for the woman who had spent her entire Saturday writing 11 pages about a daughter she had decided to hate. The next morning, I got up. I went to work. I had a board meeting at 10. We approved a renovation of the spa at the Marin. I made a list of artists I wanted to commission for the new lobby of a property we were considering acquiring in Sonoma. I had lunch with Beatriz, who had driven down to discuss the fall menu. I went home. I slept. Life continued. And the world I had spent so many years protecting from my mother began, slowly, to grow without her in it. 5 months after the wedding, in the middle of November of 2025, I got a phone call from my father at 4 in the afternoon. I was in my office on the 14th floor of a building in downtown Los Angeles, and I almost did not pick up because I had a meeting in 10 minutes. Something made me answer. Dad. Renly, I need to talk to you. Can you come to the house? What is wrong? Your mother had a small heart attack this morning. She is fine. She is at the hospital. They are keeping her overnight. She is awake and she is fine. But Renly, I think we need to talk. The doctor said this is a warning. She has been under a lot of stress. I sat very still. Dad, is she asking for me? No, Renly. She is not asking for you. She is not even asking for Saoirse. She is asking for me to bring her hairbrush and her crossword book. That is who she is, but I am asking for you. I am asking you to come and sit with your old man for an afternoon, because I do not know what to do, and I do not have anybody else to ask. I canceled the meeting. I got in my car. I drove the 4 hours to Boise. I had not been back to the house I grew up in for almost 3 years. Nothing had changed. The same brown couch. The same green carpet in the hallway. The same dusty plastic flowers on the kitchen table. My father sat at the kitchen table and looked smaller than I had ever seen him. I sat down across from him. He poured me a cup of coffee. She is going to be fine, he said. The doctors said the damage is minimal. She is going to be on some new medication. She is going to need to make some lifestyle changes. She does not want to make any of them. She told the nurse this morning that she would rather die than give up her one. That is on brand, I said. It is. We sat for a while. Renly, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Do not try to spare me. All right. Do you think your mother is ever going to apologize to you? I thought about it. No, Dad. Why not? Because she does not have the framework. To apologize, she would have to first admit that she was wrong. And to admit that she was wrong, she would have to admit that the story she has been telling herself about me, and about us, and about her own mother, is the wrong story. And admitting that would be like asking her to set fire to her own life. She is not going to do it, not at 67, not after a heart attack. The heart attack will not change her, Dad. It will only convince her that she is the victim of stress that I caused. He nodded slowly. That is what I thought too. I just wanted to hear somebody else say it. Are you okay? I am tired, Renly. I have been tired for a long time. Dad, what do you want to do? He looked at me. He was 69 years old. He had spent 42 years working a job he had not loved, married to a woman who had not loved him the way he had needed to be loved, raising 2 daughters in a house where one of them was punished and the other was praised, and not doing anything to stop it. He had lived a small life, not because he had wanted a small life, because he had not known how to want anything bigger. I want to retire, he said. I want to travel. I want to see the Grand Canyon. I have never seen the Grand Canyon, Renly. I am 69 years old and I have lived in the western United States my entire life, and I have never seen the Grand Canyon. Your mother does not want to go. Your mother does not want to go anywhere. She wants to sit in this kitchen and complain about her sciatica and watch television. And I am tired of sitting in this kitchen, Renly. I am tired. Dad, you can go to the Grand Canyon. She will not come with me. Then go without her. He looked at me as though I had said something in a language he did not understand. Dad, I said, you are not asking permission. You are not betraying her. You are a grown man who wants to see something beautiful before he dies. Go see it. Take a friend. Take yourself. Take me. I will come with you. I will fly out and meet you anywhere you want to go. I will plan the whole trip, but you have to give yourself permission to actually do it. He looked down at his coffee. I do not know how to do that, Renly. You start small, I said. You take a weekend, you drive somewhere by yourself, you sleep in a motel, you eat at a diner you have never been to, you come home, Mom will be angry. Mom will be angry for a week. And then she will get over it or she will not. Either way, you will have had the weekend. He did not say anything for a long time. I am going to think about it, he finally said. Take your time, Dad. I stayed in Boise for 2 days. I visited my mother in the hospital briefly. She was sitting up in bed doing a crossword. She looked at me when I walked in and said, I did not ask you to come. I know, Mom, I came anyway. Why? Because you are my mother, and you had a heart attack, and whatever else is true between us, that is also true. She did not respond. She looked at her crossword. I sat in the chair next to her bed for 15 minutes. I did not try to make conversation. I just sat. When I stood up to leave, she said without looking up, Tell your sister I am fine. I will. I drove back to Los Angeles. I called Saoirse on the drive. I told her what had happened. She cried. She said she was going to fly to Boise that weekend. I told her that was her choice and I supported it either way. A week later, my father did something that surprised me. My father took a solo trip to the Grand Canyon. He realized he had not done anything for himself in 40 years. He later told me he would ask my mother for a separation. When he returned, she was furious and ignored him for 2 weeks, which he called the best 2 weeks of the marriage. He eventually moved out and is now learning to be himself. My mother remains in denial, telling friends it is a midlife crisis. She and I are not in contact. I sent her a birthday card, but she did not reply. I accept this distance. My sister Saoirse is expecting a baby and has also set boundaries with our mother. My hotel business is thriving, and I am dating a man named Augustin who truly sees me. I have learned that people who love you do not require you to shrink. You do not owe anyone a relationship that demands your silence. For 12 years, I hid my hotel success because my mother would have tried to diminish my joy. I regret having to hide my achievements, but I no longer regret protecting my happiness. If you are watching this, and you have a parent who does what my mother did, I want you to hear me. I want you to hear me clearly. You do not have to fix them. You do not have to wait for them. You do not have to keep auditioning to be seen by people who have decided not to see you. You can step away. You can build your life on the other side of their opinion of you. And one day, you will sit somewhere quiet, on a balcony or a beach, or in the seventh floor suite of a hotel that you somehow ended up owning, and you will realize that the small voice in your head that used to whisper that you were a failure has finally gone silent. Not because you proved it wrong, but because you stopped listening to it. That is the goal, that is the freedom. I wore a navy dress to the wedding of my sister because I did not want anybody to look at me. I sat at table 9 because I had been put there. I let my mother say what she said, and I did not interrupt her, and I did not defend myself, because I had learned a long time ago that the people who need to humiliate you in public are the people who are already losing the private fight with themselves. I just sat there. I smiled. And then, a man I had hired walked across the room with a key on a tray. And the lie that my mother had been telling for 34 years finally cracked open under its own weight. She has not spoken to me since the heart attack. I do not know if she ever will. I have made peace with not knowing. I have made peace with the possibility that the last words my mother will ever say to me may be the words she said in front of 200 guests. You will never amount to anything. Why can you not be rich like the husband of your sister? It is a strange thing to be at peace with that. It is not a happy thing. It is just a true thing. I will tell you what I am rich in. I am rich in a sister who is finally my sister. I am rich in a father who is finally a father. I am rich in a grandmother who died believing in me and whose belief carried me across every hard year of my 20s. I am rich in a man who looks at me and sees a person. I am rich in a team at this hotel who would walk through fire for me because I built a workplace where people are treated like people. I am rich in the quiet morning hours when I drink coffee on this balcony and watch the sun come up over the Pacific and know that I built every single thing I see. That is the rich I care about. That is the rich that matters. If this story touched you, or if you have walked some version of this road yourself, I would love to hear about it. Leave a comment and share your experience. Like the video so somebody else who needs to hear this can find it. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. And whatever you are carrying tonight, from whatever family taught you to carry it, I hope you can set it down. Even just for a few minutes. Even just long enough to remember that you are the owner of your own life. Nobody else holds the keys to that one. Only you. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next story.